$500,000, $700,000, $900,000. That is what a single-family home costs in most Canadian cities today, and inside, almost every one is a steel box the size of a microwave that almost nobody who lives in the house has ever opened. That box is the breaker panel, the most trusted, least understood component in your entire home. Tonight I am going to show you what is inside it, why it cannot stop the kind of fire most likely to start in your house, and the one brand name you need to check for before you go to sleep. Because when you hear what Underwriters Laboratories did to that brand in 1983, you will understand why this is the dirtiest secret in residential electrical work. Most homeowners assume the breaker panel is a fire safety device. They assume if something goes wrong electrically, the breaker trips, the lights go out, and you call an electrician on Monday. That assumption is wrong, and the gap between what your breaker actually does and what you think it does is the most dangerous misunderstanding in residential construction. Your breaker is a thermal magnetic device. It senses two things: sustained overcurrent and short circuit current. It cannot sense fire. According to the National Fire Protection Association, there are approximately 51,000 residential electrical fires in North America every year. They kill more than 500 people and cause over $1.3 billion in property damage annually. The vast majority do not start from overcurrent. They start from arcing. Arcing is what electricians call it when a connection inside your wall, a loose terminal screw, a nail driven through a wire during a renovation, or a piece of insulation worn through, starts to spark and heat up like the coil on an electric stove. That arc generates more than enough heat to ignite framing lumber and drywall paper. It does not generate enough current to trip a thermal magnetic breaker. Your breaker sits in the panel doing its job perfectly while the wall is on fire. The average claim runs $25,000 to $50,000. A total loss can exceed $300,000. The fix exists. It has existed since the late 1990s. The reason it is not in your panel comes down to about $40 per circuit. Look inside almost any residential panel installed in the last 40 years, and the breaker is not screwed into anything. It is held by a single piece of spring metal called a stab. Approximately 90% of residential panels in North America use stab-on connections. The breaker clips onto a copper or aluminum bus bar, and the only thing maintaining contact across 30, 40, 50 years is spring tension. The contact point oxidizes. The oxide layer increases resistance. The resistance generates heat. The heat anneals the spring metal and reduces contact pressure further, which generates more heat. That is the slow motion definition of a panel fire. When that connection finally fails catastrophically, it can melt the bus bar and ignite the panel cabinet from the inside. Replacement of a fire-damaged panel runs $2,500 to $4,500, and most insurers will not renew the policy afterward. The device that does what your standard breaker cannot is called an arc fault circuit interrupter, AFCI. It senses the high-frequency signature of an arc and trips in milliseconds, long before the wood behind your drywall reaches ignition temperature. AFCI breakers have been required by the National Electrical Code in bedroom circuits since 2002, and the requirement expanded to most habitable rooms by 2014. But code is not retroactive. If your home was built before 2008, you almost certainly have no AFCI protection at all. The economics drive everything. A standard 15-amp breaker costs a builder roughly $4 wholesale. An AFCI 15-amp costs $35 to $50. For a 30-circuit panel, the differential is $900 to $1,300. That is the line item a volume builder will not cross unless code physically forces them to. A licensed electrician can retrofit AFCI breakers for $80 to $150 per circuit. A whole home upgrade runs $1,500 to $2,500. That is the difference between a $30,000 fire claim and a tripped breaker on a Tuesday afternoon. The brand you need to know is Federal Pacific Electric. The panel line is called Stab-Lok. Federal Pacific manufactured these panels from the 1950s through the early 1980s, and they are installed in an estimated 28 million homes across the United States and Canada. Dr. Jesse Ehrenstein, a former General Electric engineer, tested Stab-Lok breakers in a controlled sample. The failure rate to trip on a sustained overcurrent, the one thing the breaker is designed to do, ranged from 25% to 65%, depending on age and condition, 1 in 4. In some samples, 2 in 3. Underwriters, laboratories withdrew the FPE listing in 1983 after evidence emerged that factory test results had been falsified for years. The Consumer Product Safety Commission confirmed the defect and closed the file without a recall, not because the panels were safe, but because the agency ran out of budget. There is a sister brand called Zinsco, sometimes labeled Sylvania Zinsco, with aluminum bus bars that oxidize and breakers that weld themselves to the bus under heat load. Major insurance carriers will not write new policies on a home with an FPE or Zinsco panel in service. So what is actually worth your money? Number 3, if you have a modern stab-on panel, have a licensed electrician retrofit AFCI breakers on your bedroom, living room, and kitchen circuits. It is the single highest return safety upgrade in residential electrical work. Number 2, if you are renovating, specify a bolt on industrial-grade panel, square DQO, Siemens, or Eaton CH. They run $200 to $400 more than builder grade, and they are what commercial electricians install in their own houses. Number 1, if you are buying any house built before 1990, the first item on your inspection list is not the roof. It is the breaker panel. If you see the letters FPE, Stab-Lok, or Zinsco anywhere inside that box, you walk away, or you negotiate the full replacement cost off the asking price before signing anything. Your breaker is not a fire safety device. It is an overcurrent device. The thing that actually stops the fire is the breaker you have to ask for by name. Your builder's incentive was to pass inspection. The certification body's incentive was to keep manufacturers paying for stickers. Your incentive is to not be the next claim. Those 3 incentives have never aligned, and the panel on your basement wall is the proof. If this saved your house, subscribe to Broken Canada. Next week, we will go inside the most expensive single mistake being made in modern Canadian construction: closed cell spray foam insulation. We will name the products. I will see you then.